Hello friends and family, it's me, Jessie. So today I thought I would talk to you guys a little bit about what it's like teaching different age groups here in China. Oh, sorry for the bad light. Again, like last time, it's another very beautiful bright day here in Fuzhou, so I might look a little washed out, etc. No, taxi driver, I don't want to talk to you. Anywho, so when you teach at a private school, typically your students are not one age group, which is comparatively pretty different from probably teaching in a high school or a kindergarten. Because teaching in a high school or a kindergarten, you know how old your students are going to be on like a day-to-day basis. I mean, they might be between like 5 and 6, or they might be between, I don't know, like 12 and 14. But at a private school, you are a training center. It's not like private school where you are paid, where people pay a certain amount of money to go to that school. A private school is a training center where students go after school to take their classes. That can be students from the age of 3 to 4, if you have a nursery level, or all the way up to ages 16. I haven't had any students older than that. My oldest student is 16. So for me, a typical week is usually teaching 2 classes of kindergartners. That would be 5 to 7-ish year olds. I don't teach nursery, which would be 3 to 4, but we do have nursery classes. For me, and with them, it's sort of teaching classes that are high energy and engaging versus just like lecture based. And that's sort of the way that my school does things. So instead of having like classes that are teacher-led, well, they are still more teacher-led than average, or classes with really high teacher talk time. In a kinder class at a private school, at least with my school's teaching philosophy, it's very activity-based, and it's meant to sort of engage the students so that they don't get bored. Because if you're teaching really young children, their attention span is going to last about 5 minutes. Whether it's 5 minutes of you talking and teaching new vocabulary or grammar, or if it's 5 minutes of an activity. So it's a lot of really fast-paced games, simple games, and reinforcing vocabulary that they've already learned several times, because at least I find with my younger students, they really need that exposure. Ooh, hello. They need that exposure to the language more than once in order to actually grasp it, because the lessons for a young class of kinders, we call them kinders, ooh, very exposed, last about an hour versus junior classes, which last about an hour and a half. So then you also have junior classes. I teach majority junior classes. My juniors are between the ages of 7 to, I think my oldest is 12, maybe. I teach junior, so I was teaching First Step, which is a phonics course that sort of teaches them the basics of the English language so that they understand what they're reading and learning how to read and not just being thrown into things. But at that level, you could have them doing activities for a longer period of time than kinders, simply because, you know, they've been in a classroom environment before, whereas with a kinder, sometimes they've never been in a school and you're their first adventure into being in a school, especially with a foreign teacher, which is something really important to consider, because sometimes with a young class, like a really young class of 5-year-olds, you're teaching them how to exist in a classroom environment and how to work with other students, and that's a little difficult sometimes. But if you work well and you sort of go from like a large group approach to a small group approach, then it makes things more digestible for the students. Whereas with junior classes, I tend to do a lot of teamwork in the beginning when they don't really know each other very well, and a lot of pair work. I love pair work, and a lot of small group work, because again, same principle with the younger students, they are not supposed to be super teacher-led classes. The students should be producing more than you, and it typically follows the same principle of practice, produce, or present, practice, produce. So you'll present the language, and then you'll give them some sort of controlled practice, and then have them do some free exercises for independent production. With my juniors, that typically works very well. I try to break up the bookwork, because I mean, when you're a 7-year-old, bookwork's really boring. When you're older, bookwork is boring. And so breaking it up or doing an activity that makes it fun and incentivizing is always a good choice. So then, that's sort of my lower juniors, because juniors is a pretty broad age group. So with lower juniors, simple activities that are fun, build teamwork, build community, and make class a little bit more exciting than just like going to school. Then you have high juniors. So with my high junior classes, I try to challenge them more. My high junior classes, I do a lot more writing because they're able and exposed to writing. And so I have them do a lot of writing and grammar practice through games as well. And a lot of working together to create a product and to help each other grade their stuff. So for example, I'll have an activity where students will draw pictures of something, then have to label or write sentences for what the other group drew, or correct each other's grammar. And peer correction is a really good tool at that level because you'll always have those strong students, and you'll have weak students, and you'll have middle students, or middle tier students, and having them help each other is a good way to give them some sort of responsibility in their learning that is not just you. And it also helps to build a community and help them understand how to work with responsibility. Then I only have one senior class, and it is the highest level senior class at my branch. That is called Go Beyond. My youngest student in that class, I'm pretty sure, is 13, and my oldest student is 16, and so it's like ages 13, 14, 15, 16, which can be a little weird sometimes because the age gap is pretty significant, but you can still make it work. So with that class, I have one student that's pretty much fluent with basic grammar errors and needs to work on her vocabulary, versus also having students that are, they're getting there, but they're not quite as fluent as she is. So in that class, ooh, hello again, I'm so sorry. I'm walking down the street right now carrying things, so it's hard to have a good camera angle. But for that class, it's a lot of writing and culture. So they told me, because I try to give them some choice in what they're learning, because at that age they need it to actually focus in class. But for them, I do a lot of culture. I try not to lecture, but I do lecture sometimes, and engage the content that we're learning with something. If you've heard of a CLIL, which is like language and context, or like teaching students about a subject through English, I sort of treat it that way. For example, with our last lesson, it was on color, which can be pretty boring, and they've encountered it at multiple levels. But so we talked about color blindness, mood rings, what mood would suit colors, and symbolism of different colors in different cultures. So it's a lot of compare and contrast, and there goes a really loud car. Sorry about that. Compare and contrast things, critical thinking skills. I also have them doing presentations and essays, and they have quizzes. So I structure it more like a normal American schoolish style class, but still in an ESL context. So it's far more difficult. It is my favorite class to teach, and the planning hours are much longer, but that's fine because it's good for the students, and they've made a lot of progress, and it teaches them skills that they will need to know, because in China they don't do essay writing, the critical thinking is not the same, and so it's really important to scaffold for them how to do discussions and how to do writing and presentations, because if they're going to university abroad, that's something that they will be expected to do, and they will probably be shocked by. And so in my higher level classes, I tend to take a preparatory approach as well as something interesting to add in, because you want the class to be interesting. You don't want it to just be English, vocabulary, grammar, we're done, because that's just boring. Nobody wants to be talked at for an hour. But anyway, hopefully that gave you an idea of what it's like having a bunch of different age groups. Fortunately, it keeps things refreshing, not always teaching the same class all the time, especially since the curriculum is written for you, but it does have its challenges, and I think it's good for any teacher to go through those challenges. So anyway, until next time, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Please follow Teach English in China. Leave any questions, comments, concerns you might have down below, and until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye.